Hi kids, welcome back to another pizza party. I'm Mrs. Pizza. Winnie and Cheese are somewhere. We have just gotten past having a whole lot of dogs in this house. Oh, there's someone coming. Sounds like Cheese. That's Cheese. We just got finished dog sitting, and I feel like they both have been very independent for the last 24 hours and sleeping because we had too much fun. Just a little too much fun with our guests, didn't we, Cheesy? But we are here today to do another recent reads wrap up. Why? Because if I wait too long, there's too many books and it's overwhelming. So I like to do this while it's whelming. That's just, I'm going with whelming being the correct word to use in that sentence. Let's talk about some books. The first book we're going to talk about today is Crying in H-Mart, and that is by Michelle Zauner. This is a memoir by, obviously, hold on, the AC just turned on. You're a sneak. Well, if you can hear the AC, I turned it off, but for some reason it says no, it's hot outside, so it's going to stay on apparently. It's in charge. I am not in charge of my own household. The air conditioning unit in the South holds the supreme power. Crying in H-Mart by Michelle Zauner. This is a memoir of a Korean American who had a very complicated relationship with her mother. I have said that this memoir is kind of like sitting down with a friend and having them tell you about their life. It's very straightforward. It doesn't get bogged down in a bunch of imagery. It has some very kind of rough and sad things that happen, but I never felt overwhelmed. If anything, you just feel empathy for Michelle and some of the things that she's gone through in her life. But one of the main points of this memoir is focused around food. How Michelle and her mother connected was through food. Michelle was always a very adventurous eater, and that was something she prided herself on. But it is also kind of a way to connect her not only to her own heritage, but to her own mother. This was a really great memoir. I listened to the audiobook of this, and I highly recommend it. And I'm pretty sure this has been picked up and will be made into a movie at some point, hopefully. I think it would be a pretty good movie. Might make you cry a little bit. But I really enjoyed this. I'm not a huge fan of memoirs, but I had a good time with this one. The next book I picked up after that was The Keeper of Enchanted Rooms, and this is by Charlie N. Holmberg. Yes, I got that right. This was kind of marketed as like a cozy fantasy romance, and that's why I picked it up. It was on Kindle Unlimited, so I said, why not give it a try? And for the first 30-40%, oh, the air conditioning just turned off. That's super fun for us. It's done now, whatever. Oh, for the first 30 to 40% of this book, I was having a good time. It's cozy and that it is all taking place in this one house. This is the story of Merritt. He is someone that is estranged from his family. I believe this is taking place in the 1800s in the Northeast. Was it Rhode Island? Not important. Basically, Merritt is estranged from his family, and then a family member leaves him this estate or this house in their will. And so Merritt travels to this house that just so happens to be enchanted. Now, in this world, magic and enchantments are a normal thing. Actually, the beginning of the book kind of starts with a brief summary of all the different kinds of magic, how they work, what the consequences of using this magic are. And I thought that the magic itself was really well thought out. Also, in this world, magic is very diluted as well because generation after generation of people, mixing people that have magic with people that don't have magic has kind of changed shape and diluted a little bit. So Merritt, moving into this enchanted house, catches the attention of a government agency for the protection of enchanted objects. So Merritt gets to this house and it promptly does all the spooky, crazy things that a haunted house in a movie would do. The walls ooze, the floors move, strange noises, creepy stuff happens. But thankfully, this magic organization has sent Hulda, who is a housekeeper. She's coming to help Merritt adjust to living in this enchanted house and also make sure that the house is well taken care of as well. The found family aspect and the coziness of being in this haunted house, but that kind of is just like quirky haunted, not like, bleeding, dismembered body parts haunted. It it held me until like the 30 or 40% mark. And then some of the big reveals of the story start happening and they felt like such non-events. I think this leans a little bit more cozy mystery, and I don't think I'm the right person for cozy mysteries. I keep trying them and I just get bored. And that's what was happening in this book. I was getting really bored. All of the big twists and turns felt like absolute non-events when we actually got to their conclusions. When we got an answer, it just felt so nothing in the story. And I thought like it should have, with all the buildup, it should have been something more. Not that the actual outcome needed to be different, but just how everybody treated it, how the book itself treated it. I also gave this up at the 70% mark. I ended up DNFing it because I was bored. I was really bored and couldn't have cared less. So I gave it up. It was on Kindle Unlimited, so it didn't really cost me any extra money other than my subscription to read it. So it's fine. If you're more of a cozy mystery person, you really enjoy those type of stories and kind of the slower pace of that, I think this would probably be right up your alley. It just wasn't for me, and that's fine. The next book I picked up after that was The Book of G, and this is by Lily Archer. I had not read anything from this author before, but this just popped up and was like, hey, you like fantasy romance? I got something for you. And I had a really, really good time with this. For a book that I had literally never heard of, I really had a great time. This is the story of G. G kind of wakes up, come to consciousness, kind of. Whoop, there's a bug. Hello. Are you gone? Please don't come back. G kind of wakes up on a riverbank. He's in and out of like kind of blacking out. He's in a lot of pain. He doesn't know what happened. And he hears this ethereal voice telling him some very cryptic messages, and then he passes out. When G finally comes to again, he's in a home of this very elderly woman she's actually kind of great. She's very crotchety, but also just calls everybody on their nonsense and is having a good time. And she has a stable boy named Charlie, or Charles, I believe is what they call him. G comes to, and he is covered in scars and wounds, and it takes him a long time to get back to normal. He's in this very small town in this fantasy world where people are not that open-minded. And so they see him, this man covered in scars, and they run the other way. Now, the only two people that have treated G with any kindness are our old lady character and our stable boy Charlie. The best part of this story is that G, when he wakes up, has the bug is back. The bug is back. Oh, wait, I'm trying to talk about books. When G wakes up, he doesn't know who he was. And through his inner monologue, because you're only ever getting the point of view of G in this book, you kind of realize pretty quickly that G probably wasn't the nicest guy before he lost all his memories. If you found out that G was the villain of someone else's story, you would probably believe it. He's super duper cocky and very, very, just his self-esteem is sky high for somebody that, according to the book, is just covered in scars and very hard to look at. But G remembers this ethereal voice right before he blacked out, and it has put a ticking clock above his head. He has a task he has to complete before something happens in order to get back the life that he can't remember. So, circumstances, and G goes on the run to try and beat this ticking clock. Unfortunately, poor Charlie, the stable boy, kind of gets caught up in all the commotion and ends up along for the ride. Charlie is the voice of reason and a really good person. Now, this was really, really fun. I don't think it's going to be for everybody because not only are we always in G's head, but G is not a nice guy. It took a while to get used to that. At first, you're just kind of like, oh, really? And then by the end of the book, I was giggling right along with the love interest at all of just this ridiculous self-confidence that G had. This was a really fun story. It's a fantasy romance. There is an adventure. They have to get from point A to point B before the time runs out. And I really, really liked this. I never read anything from this author, and I will definitely pick up some fantasy romance from them again. If you're interested, The Book of G. It's not the best book I've ever read, but I really had a good time reading it. The next book I picked up after that one was Next of Kin by Hannah Bonam Young. I picked this up on a whim after seeing a bunch of my friends on Goodreads talking about it, and it basically touts itself as a foster guardian enemies to lovers, romance, forced proximity situation. Let me tell you what this is about. So we have our main character, Chloe, and she grew up in the foster care system. Her birth mother had a lot of addiction issues and lost custody of Chloe several times. But when she was still a child, she was adopted and raised by two parents. She's now graduated from college, being an adult, starting out on her own. I think she's around 24 or 25 years old. Well, one day Chloe gets a phone call, and it's Child Protective Services that she's had to deal with a lot in her life. And they say, hey, your mom just had a baby and we were wondering if you want to be its guardian. So Chloe's life gets completely turned upside down, and she has to try and do what she can to gain custody of her brand new sister. Well, in the world that this exists in, there's a new program in the foster care CPS world where families that are trying to gain custody of children in the system who only have one thing that's holding them back, such as they don't have a home large enough that they can find readily available, or they're close to being financially ready, but if they had someone else to help split rent with, they would be financially responsible enough. There's a lot of hoops that these people have to jump through. And so they're trying to pair people up so that they can offer good homes to these children that need them. So Chloe is given the option of pairing up with one of these people to help her gain custody of her younger sister. The person that she is matched up with is Warren. Now, he is also an adult, but he also grew up in the foster care system and has aged out. He's got a job and he's working really hard, but Warren is trying to gain custody of his teenage brother, Luke. Luke is deaf and is in a group home, and it doesn't sound they were making any sort of accommodations for him to be comfortable and be able to communicate with people within this home. So Warren is doing everything he can to gain custody of his younger brother. So Chloe and Warren are matched up and living in an apartment together, trying to gain custody of these two children. This wasn't perfect. I ended up giving this a 3.5, but I had such a good time with it. And for a debut novel, it's only going to get better from there. This is the kind of book where you need to check your trigger warnings before you read it, because a lot of really not dark, but sad things are happening. You're dealing with people that have been through the foster care system, who've grown up with neglectful or abusive parents, who have been through a lot of trauma in their life, and they're still working through that as young adults. But I was so invested in Chloe and Warren, and he was so grumpy and closed off, and she was so sunshiny and just trying her best. And then you throw a 15-year-old teenager who's so moody and a brand new baby into the mix. I really, really enjoyed this, and it made this author be someone that I was looking forward to. And on that note, we'll talk about the next book I picked up. After finishing that book, I immediately jumped into the second book in that series, and that is Next to You by the same author. And this one follows the best friend of Chloe and the best friend of Warren, and their names are Lane and Matt. And this book was so good. Again, check your trigger warnings about this, because Lane is going through a lot, but Matt is such a golden retriever. He is the most supportive and lovely human being. I'm sorry. Lane has been through a lot of traumatic things in her life as well and hasn't been managing her anxiety. She kind of is letting it get the best of her, and it's compounding and getting bigger and bigger and rolling down the hill and just taking over her life. But she is trying to the bug is back. I don't know where this bug came from. I forget what I was talking about. Oh, so Lane and Matt became friends when Warren and Chloe made it official, became a couple. And so they've known each other for a while, and they've kind of developed this great friendship between the two of them. They're kind of best friends. But Matt, you can tell from the beginning, is just he's in love with Lane. And Lane isn't in a place emotionally, personally, mentally that she could be with Matt the way he deserves, is how we'll put it. These two working through their own issues. I loved this book. The whole kind of jumping off point for this is Lane, being a little erratic and spontaneous on her birthday, buys a school bus and decides that she is going to fix it up and live in it. And Matt just happens to be a mechanic. And so everybody kind of pitches in to help Lane turn this school bus into a place that she can live. I really, really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the epilogues as well. They're super sweet, and there's a lot of issues in this that are talked about in a very realistic way. I loved this. I really, really loved this, and I can't wait to read more from this author. The next book I picked up after that is A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. Now, if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I am a huge T. Kingfisher fan. I love their fantasy and their horror books. I love T. Kingfisher. There you go. Just if anybody ever asks you a fact about me, likes T. Kingfisher books. So this is the most recent horror novel from this author, and it's super, super short. I ended up listening to this on audio from the library and got through it super fast. This is touted as a Southern Gothic type novel. It is a story of Sam, and she is an adult who is going to visit her mother for an extended period of time. Something's happened with work and she's kind of caught between things, and so she has to go stay with her mom for a little while. And Sam and her mom have a very close relationship, and Sam's mom lives in her grandmother's old house. Now, as a child, Sam and her mom and her brother had to move into I forget, she has a very strange name for her grandmother, but I forget. I think it was like Grandmay. It was very fancy. It was very Southern grandma. But her grandmother was an interesting and cold character. Mom had moved into the house and turned it into her own. But when Sam gets back to her mother's house, she suddenly realizes that all of the things her brother has been telling about her mom acting weird, there might be a little bit more going on than either one of them initially thought, because the walls that were once painted vibrant colors and covered in art are now white. Everything's muted. Everything looks like it did when her grandmother used to live there, and her mother is acting strange. This is a very quirky and creepy story. And that's what I really love about T. Kingfisher books. They make you laugh and also creep you out at the same time. I also think this author does a great job of taking something that's usually sinister and making it a good thing, or even sometimes the hero, while taking something benign or something that you would usually look at as a good, kind of an image of something good, and making it sinister and creepy, kind of flipping tropes or flipping stereotypes of certain things on their head. This is another horror book that had a creepy rose garden. I've read 2 horror books recently that had creepy rose gardens. But I think this author does amazing found family banter conversations. You'll be laughing along with some of the dialogue and then immediately creeped out as the story goes along. I love a Gothic tale. I live in the South, so who doesn't love a Southern Gothic tale? And I love a T. Kingfisher book. I had a good time with this one. The next book I picked up after that is The Girl Who Could Move with Her Mind by Jackson Ford. I actually found this while we were on vacation at a used bookstore, and I mean, who wouldn't be drawn in by this cover? Or this title, really. But this is basically how I describe this is I kept calling her a telekinetic, but that's not what she is. It's like I forget the word that's used, but this is the story of Tegan, and she has the ability to move with her mind. This is a action-packed story of Tegan and her group of coworkers that get caught up in this whole crazy, wild thing that they have to prove that Tegan didn't have anything to do with. Some people are reluctantly along for the ride because all of these people work for this company because they have something to lose if they don't. They're not really friends in the beginning. They just all are kind of stuck together in this circumstance. I would say this is a story about a girl who can move with her mind if it was directed by James Gunn. It's got that humor but action-packed quality to it. The story opens with Tegan falling 82 floors out of a high-rise building with someone else in tow. And then we record scratch back up 20 minutes and do the whole I bet you're wondering how I got here situation. This one was a lot of fun and I really liked it. I don't know much about LA. I've been there, but there was a lot of like different LA landmarks and roads and stuff like that talked about, and I feel like a lot of that was lost on me because I don't know any of that, but I had a good enough time with it. This is the beginning of a series, and even though I enjoyed this, I don't think I'm going to go on. I enjoyed it enough, but I feel like it got, even though there was still a lot of action happening, you would have action, 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 and then it would slow down so people could kind of exposition dump and plan what to do next, and then action, action, action. And then there were just several times where characters made decisions that I thought, like, well, why don't they just do this? It was fine. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. If you like that James Gunn type humor action situation, then you'll probably really enjoy this. On the cover, it says it's like Alias meets X-Men, and I would say it definitely fits that vibe. The last book we're going to talk about is a short little sci-fi horror novella, and that is The Scourge Between Stars by Ness Brown. This is another one that I picked up from the library as an audiobook, and it was only about 4 hours. This is the story of Jacqueline, or Jack, who lives on a giant spaceship that's traveling from somewhere back to Earth after a very, very long time. This spaceship has been traveling for hundreds of years, and it still has hundreds of years left before it reaches its destination. It's been in space so long that Jacqueline was actually born on the ship, and she's a full-blown adult, and she's not the first generation to be born here. So even though they have hundreds of years before they get back to where they need to be, the ship itself has started to deteriorate, and they only have decades left that this ship is going to be actually headed in the right direction before it just completely dies. They're basically throwing duct tape on everything and hoping for the best, when something might be on the spaceship with them. This one I actually picked up because of the cover, because it gave me very like alien vibes. And that's exactly what you kind of get. These people trapped in a giant spaceship, and there might be something else on the ship with them. It's the isolation of being in space. You can't get off the ship. This thing is on the ship with you. What do you do when you know help is coming and you've got to figure something out? I enjoyed it enough, and I think I would definitely read more from this author. I think that some of the ways that things were wrapped up in the end, the conclusions to different things, I was thinking we were going to get different outcomes. I probably would have liked it better if we got different outcomes, because things that happened, then there was new questions about, well, what does that even mean for this person going forward? What does this mean for the ship going forward? It did have a nice ending. You do feel good at the end of it after all of the crazy, wild things that happened in this very short book. But if you like horror, space, travel, maybe scary aliens on your spaceship, it was a pretty good time. I ended up giving it 3 stars. That, kids, is where we were going to end this. 8 is the perfect number. We're not going to go any longer. I've already been talking for a while, and it looks like it's going to start raining again. I was trying to do this in between thunderstorms, and I think I timed it correctly. I also literally had no dog. The dogs are so exhausted from all of the dogs we had here that they don't even, they're so independent right now. Look at her. Just you passing out, doing a snooze. Your ears look extra dobby right now. Oh, big stretch. But that, kids, is the end of this pizza party. If you had fun hanging out, please subscribe. I hope you're reading good books out there, wherever you are. And I'll see you next time.